From the moment I met Emily, I knew I wanted to build a life with her. We connected instantly, as if some invisible thread had already woven us together in a story waiting to unfold. From our first date, the topic of family came up naturally. We were both dreamers, sitting in a cozy cafe talking about the future like it was a book we were co-authoring. She spoke warmly about having children. I remember the sparkle in her eyes as she talked about being a mom. I told her how I imagined Saturday mornings filled with laughter, cereal scattered on the floor, and a tiny hand tugging at my shirt, asking for just one more story before breakfast. We both agreed kids were in the cards. Not immediately, but someday. We dated for years, always aligned in our values and goals. When I proposed, it felt less like a question and more like a continuation of something inevitable. Our wedding was beautiful, filled with laughter, family, and unspoken belief that this was the start of everything we had dreamed about. In the first few years of our marriage, we focused on our careers and traveled a lot. Life was good. I loved coming home to her, cooking dinner together, watching movies curled up on the couch. But always, there was this quiet drumbeat in the back of my mind that soon, we'll start our family. I remember the first serious conversation we had about trying for a baby. It was a rainy Sunday afternoon. We were sipping coffee, watching the world go by outside our window. I began cautiously. I've been thinking. Maybe we could start trying soon. She looked at me with soft eyes, the kind that always made me feel understood. I've thought about it too, she said. But I'm just not sure if now is the right time. That was okay. We still had time, but months passed. Then a year. Every time I brought it up, she would respond with new worries, work stress, financial goals, feeling not quite ready. At first, I understood. Parenthood is a big step, and I wanted her to feel confident and comfortable. Still, I couldn't help but feel an ache building inside me, a growing emptiness where dreams once lived. I didn't want to pressure her. I loved her too much to do that. But I also couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. One night, I came home to find her already in bed, the light from her tablet glowing in the dark. I said, sitting down beside her. "Can we talk?" She set her tablet down and turned to me. I could see it in her eyes. She already knew what I was going to ask. "You know I love you," I began, "but I need to know where you really stand. About kids. About our future." Her eyes welled up. She reached for my hand. "I'm scared, Dan. I thought I wanted them. I really did. But lately, I don't know. The idea of being a mom terrifies me. What if I'm not good at it? What if I resent it? What if it changes everything between us?" I squeezed her hand, trying to steady the whirlwind in my chest. "We promised each other," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "that this is something we both wanted. That we'd do it together." "I know," she said. "I meant it then. But people change. I've changed. And I didn't expect that." In the weeks that followed, we tried therapy. We talked more, deeper than we ever had. She wasn't rejecting motherhood out of selfishness. She was being honest, vulnerable, human. And I couldn't fault her for that. But I also couldn't deny the ache in my heart. I faced a decision I never thought I'd have to make. Do I walk away from the woman I love in pursuit of the children I've always dreamed of? Or do I stay, accept this life as it is, and let go of what could have been? There's no tidy ending to a story like this. Love, I've learned, isn't always about shared dreams. Sometimes it's about meeting each other where we are and deciding if that's still enough. For now, we're still together. We've shifted our focus to mentoring, volunteering with youth, and pouring love into the lives around us. It's not the life I imagined, but it's still a life filled with love. The weeks following that night blurred into a kind of emotional limbo. We were still together, waking up side by side, going about our routines, but the air between us had shifted. Not heavy, not hostile, just uncertain. Like we were walking carefully across a frozen lake, not sure where the cracks might be. We kept going to therapy, and those sessions became our sanctuary. A space where we could peel back the layers without fear of judgment, even if what we found there scared us. Emily spoke about the pressure she'd always felt, not from me, she clarified, but from life, from the world, from that silent, relentless timeline that whispered, "You're falling behind." She talked about how growing up, motherhood had seemed inevitable. Her friends all spoke about having children as a given. But now, in the stillness of her own adulthood, the weight of that assumption felt suffocating. She loved the idea of love, but the messiness, the unpredictability of parenthood, the loss of self, that terrified her. I listened. I tried to really listen. Not to argue or convince, but to understand. I had always imagined fatherhood as a future destination. Something we'd arrive at together, with balloons and baby showers and the warm glow of anticipation. I'd never considered the possibility that it might remain a dream unfulfilled, that the family we'd spoken about so many times might be something I would have to grieve, even while still in the arms of the woman I loved. Some days, that realization sat gently on my chest. Other days, it pressed like a weight I couldn't lift out. It wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no suitcase in the hallway. Just a conversation at the kitchen table over lukewarm tea. "I think," Emily said quietly, "we might need some space. Not forever. Just time to breathe. Apart." I nodded, even though it felt like my heart was being peeled open. I understood. We had been so intertwined for so long, dreaming the same dreams, that we'd lost sight of what it meant to want different things, to be different people. And we needed to face that reality without the softening lens of everyday routine. I stayed with my brother for a few weeks. It was strange how quickly life adjusted. I made my own meals, went to work, came home to silence. I missed her laugh in the next room. Missed the way she would leave little sticky notes on the bathroom mirror with silly affirmations: "You survived Monday. You win." And yet, the space gave me room to think clearly for the first time in months. I journaled a lot. Wrote letters I never sent. Tried to understand where my line was, what I could compromise, and what I couldn't. Grieving an unlived life is an odd kind of grief. It's not like mourning someone who's passed, or recovering from a breakup. The love is still there. The person is still there. But the future you build like a sandcastle in your mind has been washed away. And now you're standing in the tide, empty-handed, wondering what to build instead. There's no funeral for lost dreams, no condolence cards or casseroles. Just a quiet ache that creeps in when you see a father holding his child's hand, or when you're scrolling through photos of old friends and their growing families. I never resented them. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a sharp pang of longing. That hollow what if that echoes when you least expect it. Sometimes, I'd find myself imagining a version of my life where I had walked away, where I met someone new, someone whose dreams aligned with mine, and raised the family I'd always wanted. I pictured little league games and birthday parties and chaotic Christmas mornings with toys strewn across the living room floor. And yet, every version of that fantasy felt strangely hollow without Emily in it. Eventually, Emily and I came back together, not because we had fixed everything, but because we realized we didn't want to face the uncertainty alone. We talked more honestly than ever before. No scripts, no expectations. Just truth. "I may never feel ready," she admitted one evening, as we walked through the park under a purple dusk. "And I don't want to lead you on anymore. I love you, but I can't promise I'll change my mind." "I know," I said. "And I can't promise I'll stop wanting it." That might have been the end for some couples. But for us, it was the beginning of something else entirely. We decided to stop living in the shadow of what might never be, and start focusing on what is. We started volunteering together at a local youth center. It began as something small, helping kids with homework, organizing weekend activities, but quickly became something much deeper. There was a boy named Malik, quiet and guarded, who took weeks to open up. But when he did, he latched onto us like we were lifelines. I still remember the first time he called me Coach Dan during basketball practice. I laughed, but something inside me stirred, a flicker of the father I might have been, finding a different kind of expression. Emily thrived there too. She had a gift for connection, knew just how to draw a smile from the shyest kid. Watching her in that environment reminded me that nurture isn't confined to biology. That love, when poured into others, multiplies. Over time, we became mentors to several kids, some of whom still message us years later, telling us about their graduations, their jobs, their own families. And while it's not the same as raising a child from birth, it filled some of the emptiness in ways I hadn't expected. We took trips. Not the bucket list kind, but the kind that filled the soul, quiet weekends by the coast, hikes with no destination, mornings where we slept in just because we could. We hosted nieces and nephews, spoiled them rotten, gave them back at the end of the weekend, and laughed at our exhaustion. We created new rituals, monthly dinner parties with friends, volunteering retreats, reading together under the covers like kids hiding from the world. We also honored our grief. We gave it space. There were nights when I still cried quietly, thinking about the child we'd never meet. Emily would hold me, tears of her own silently joining mine. And there were moments when she confessed her own sorrow, not for not wanting children, but for feeling like she had failed some version of herself. We met each other there, in that in-between place. That was our real promise. One day, years later, we sat on a bench overlooking a lake, our hands intertwined like the roots of two trees grown together. We had aged not dramatically, but gently. There was silver at her temples now, and laugh lines around my eyes. We watched a young couple pass us, pushing a stroller. The baby inside gurgled and waved a chubby fist at the sky. I felt Emily squeeze my hand. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. I didn't answer right away. "I think I grieve it," I said. "But no, I don't regret you." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat there, surrounded by the gentle sounds of the world moving on. I've come to believe that promises don't always have to be broken or kept. Sometimes, they evolve. The promise Emily and I made wasn't just about children, it was about showing up for life, together. About love that adapts, reshapes, persists. They hasn't gone away. I don't expect it to. But neither has the love. Neither has the choice to keep choosing each other, again and again, even when the path diverged from the map we once drew in a cozy cafe. We don't always get the life we planned. But sometimes, the life that grows in its place, imperfect, unexpected, beautiful in its own right, is still worth everything. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. We were still together. But everything felt different after that night. Not in the way that shatters you, not suddenly, not catastrophically. More like the quiet rearranging of furniture in a dark room. You know things have moved, but you keep bumping into what you no longer recognize. Our conversations grew softer but heavier. We tiptoed around the topic at first, both of us afraid of what we might hear, or what we might finally have to say out loud. I found myself studying her across the table during dinner, memorizing the curve of her mouth as she chewed, the way she blinked slowly when she was tired, the quiet hum she made when she was thinking. I was afraid. Afraid that the woman I loved might still be beside me, but the future we dreamed was no longer with us. We went to therapy. Every week, the same beige room with the same gentle-voiced woman who would guide us, never push us, toward truths that weren't easy. Emily cried a lot. I did too, though less visibly. There's something about that kind of ache, it settles into your bones. I kept thinking about the promises we made in that cafe on our first date, the ones we later slipped into our vows. We didn't say, "I promise to have kids." We said, "I promise to build a future with you." But in my mind, they had always meant the same thing. I think what broke me open wasn't that Emily didn't want to be a mother anymore, it was the realization that I didn't know what to do with my dream if I wasn't holding it with her. One night, I went for a walk alone. It was late autumn. Leaves curled and crunched beneath my shoes, and the wind smelled faintly of chimney smoke and change. I walked without a destination, just movement to outrun the ache. I ended up at a playground. The swings squeaked softly in the breeze, empty and still. I sat on a bench and watched them move, imagining the ghosts of a life that might have been our child, laughing and asking me to push higher. Emily in the distance, smiling, wrapped in a scarf. It wasn't the fantasy of a man who'd lost his grip on reality. It was grief, simple, sharp, and unspeakable. The next morning, I told Emily I needed some space. "Not forever," I said. "Just time to think, to breathe outside of the story we'd written together. She didn't cry. She just nodded and held my hand longer than usual, as if memorizing its shape. I moved in with my brother for a few weeks. It was strange, being back in a space that wasn't mine. The days passed in a blur of silence, routine, and aching. I missed her. Not just her presence, but the small things: how she greeted me when I came home, the way she sang while making tea, the way her cold feet always found me under the covers at night. I journaled a lot. Wrote pages and pages trying to untangle what mattered most. Was my love for her strong enough to let go of a dream that once defined me? Was the dream itself something I wanted in my bones, or was it shaped by years of assumptions of what love, family, and adulthood are supposed to look like? There were no easy answers. We stayed in touch during that time, short texts at first, updates about the house, a show we both loved, a photo of our favorite dog from the park. Then longer messages. Then calls. We were gentle with each other, like two people learning a new language. When I moved back in, we didn't declare anything resolved. There was no grand reconciliation. We simply picked up the thread of us and began weaving something new. The conversations continued, sometimes painful, often unresolved, but always real. We made a decision then. If we weren't going to have children, at least not in the way we once imagined, we would find another way to love, to nurture, to leave a mark. We began volunteering at a youth mentorship center downtown. It started small: weekend workshops, tutoring, helping with art projects, but it grew. There was a boy named Malik, about 12, quiet and angry in the way that hides pain. He latched onto us slowly. First with silence, then with sarcasm, and finally, with trust. Watching Emily laugh with him, teach him to cook scrambled eggs, read with him on rainy afternoons, I saw something bloom in her, and in me. We were becoming something else. Not parents, not exactly, but a presence. A safe place. A kind of love that didn't require DNA to be real. Time passed. We didn't measure it in milestones anymore. No trimesters or nursery planning. No baby showers. Just seasons. Summers where we traveled to small towns and stayed in cabins with no cell service. Winters filled with warm dinners and slow mornings. Sometimes we hosted our nieces and nephews. Sometimes we just stayed in bed all weekend reading and talking. And sometimes we cried. Grief doesn't disappear. It changes shape. Sometimes it's a dull ache that hums beneath the surface. Sometimes it flares unexpectedly: a baby's laugh in a store, a comment from a stranger. But over time, it becomes part of the landscape. You stop stumbling over it. You learn where it lives, and you visit it gently. One evening, years later, we were walking by a lake not far from our home. The sun was setting, the sky a quilt of pink and amber. We sat on a bench, holding hands. The young couple passed us, pushing a stroller. The baby inside was babbling, waving a tiny hand at the wind. Emily watched them for a moment, then looked at me. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. I turned to her. Her eyes hadn't changed. Still full of thought, still holding that same depth I had fallen into all those years ago. "I think I grieve it," I said after a pause. "But I don't regret you." She nodded, leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat in silence. There's a kind of peace that comes when you stop chasing the life you thought you should have, and begin truly living the one you do. It doesn't mean the loss vanishes. It means you stop letting it define your days. We kept mentoring. We built traditions. We started an annual scholarship in Malik's name when he graduated, and became the first in his family to go to college. He cried when we told him. Called us his people. That night, Emily cried too. She held my hand and whispered, "This matters." And she was right. It did. It does. We still sometimes talk about what might have been. But we don't live there anymore. Our home is here, and the life we've built, not the one we imagined in a cafe so many years ago, but the one shaped by choice, by honesty, by love that didn't run when the path got hard. Love, I've learned, is not the fulfillment of every dream. It's the decision to stay, to grow, to adapt, even when the dreams change. It's finding purpose in unexpected places. It's knowing that some promises are not broken, they are rewritten. This is our story, still unfolding, still imperfect, still beautiful, and still, somehow, enough.